You've seen them on Netflix. The brooding heroes, the terrifying monsters, and yes, the sparkling heartthrobs. But what if Netflix is reaching back into the darkness of forgotten folklore to create its next big hits? We're not talking about garlic and steaks here. We're counting down the top 10 bizarre, terrifying, and downright weird vampire legends that are getting twisted into the shows you're about to be binge-watching. And number 1? It will change how you see vampires forever. Introduction. Let's face it, the classic vampire has been done to death. The capes, the castles, the charisma. It's all become a little predictable. And Netflix knows it. The streaming giant gets that to keep us hooked. They can't just serve up Dracula for the 100th time. So, they're sending their creators digging through myths from all over the world, unearthing the bones of forgotten legends, and giving them a modern, often terrifying, makeover. From scientific theories behind ancient curses to the psychological horror of living forever, Netflix is building a new breed of vampire that speaks to our own modern fears. This isn't just about making vampires scary again. It's about making them relevant. So let's get into it as we count down the top 10 vampire myths Netflix and other streamers are turning into shows. Section 10. The Scientific Vampire. A virus, not a curse. Kicking off our list at number 10 is a myth that's less ancient folklore and more modern nightmare. Vampirism as a disease. For centuries, it was a supernatural curse or a demonic deal. But recently, and especially on Netflix, we've seen the rise of the vampire virus, which reframes the undead as victims of a biological pathogen. It's a clever move that grounds the horror in something chillingly plausible. A pandemic. The best example of this is the Netflix series 5 Wars. In the show, a doctor, played by Vampire Diaries alum Ian Somerhalder, and his best friend are thrown into a global crisis when melting. Arctic ice releases an ancient virus that starts turning people into vampires. The series very deliberately treats vampirism not as some mystical affliction, but as a disease caused by a prion. This creates a whole different kind of horror. It's not good versus evil. It's infection versus containment, a fear that feels all too real. The show becomes about societal collapse and the frantic race for a cure, with Somerhalder's character trying to solve the science while his infected friend becomes the leader of a vampire uprising. It's a smart, terrifying update that makes the vampire feel dangerously close to home. Section 9. The Invitation. Consent and Thresholds in a Modern World. Coming in at number 9 is one of the most stubborn rules of vampire lore. They can't enter your home without an invitation. This idea has deep roots in folklore, where the threshold of a home was seen as a sacred, protected space. For a vampire to cross it, you had to willingly give consent. While older stories use this as a simple way for heroes to catch a break, modern shows are re-examining this rule through the lens of psychological manipulation, consent, and what a home even is. In many old legends, this rule was absolute. But what really counts as an invitation? A word? A gesture? Does it count if you were tricked? Netflix's Dracula from 2020 played with this brilliantly. The show has Dracula himself explain that it's not a physical barrier, but a psychological one tied to the nature of the undead. They need the invitation because they feed on the life inside, and that connection requires a willing or at least cleverly fooled participant. This idea of consent and violation is central to how new shows are tackling the myth. In a series like First Kill, where a teenage vampire and a hunter fall for each other, inviting someone into your home is a huge, dangerous step in the relationship. The myth is no longer just about a magic barrier. It is about the emotional contracts we make and the terrifying decision to let someone past our defenses. Section 8. The Matriarchal Bloodline. Legacy and Inheritance. At number 8, we have a myth that completely flips the power structure of the vampire world. The Matriarchal Bloodline. For most of history, the vampire world has been a boys' club. From Count Dracula to Lestat, Powerful male vampires have always been at the top. But in shows like Netflix's First Kill, we see a fascinating twist. Vampire families ruled by powerful women, where power is passed down by birth, not by bite. In First Kill, the Fairmont family are legacy vampires, a pure-blood aristocracy. The show builds its own unique origin story for them, rooted in the idea that they are descended from Lilith from Edenic myth. This immediately establishes a powerful, ancient, and female-centric hierarchy. In their society, true power is passed from mother to daughter, putting immense pressure on the young protagonist, Juliet. Her first kill isn't just about survival. It's a rite of passage, a deadly debutante ball she must complete to take her place within this powerful matriarchy. This allows the story to explore themes of inherited trauma, family duty, and the struggle for identity, all through a female-focused lens. It moves past the lone male predator trope and creates a complex world of family politics and ancient traditions. Section 7. The Post-Apocalyptic Predator, Surviving the Endless Night. Coming in hot at number 7 is a myth that changes the entire game, the post-apocalyptic predator. Traditionally, vampires were a hidden threat in a human-dominated world. But what happens when that world goes dark? Netflix is set to explore this very idea with its adaptation of the hit Audible podcast, Impact Winter. This story flips the script. Instead of vampires hiding from humans, humans are hiding from them. The premise is terrifyingly simple. A comet strike has blocked out the sun, plunging the world into a permanent freezing night. This Impact Winter removes the vampire's greatest weakness, sunlight. With nothing to fear, they emerge as the planet's new apex predators. The story follows a pair of sisters in the UK fighting to survive in this new world, where humanity is now the endangered species. The project has some serious talent behind it, with Francis Lawrence of The Hunger Games and I Am Legend set to direct, signaling a major investment in this vision. It's a blend of post-apocalyptic survival horror and classic vampire lore, asking a terrifying question. When the world ends, who are the real monsters? Section 6. Arithmomania, the compulsion to count. Now we're getting into the truly weird stuff. And number 6 is one of the strangest myths in vampire folklore. Arithmomania, the obsessive compulsion to count. You might know it from Count Von Count on Sesame Street, but its origins are dark. In cultures from China to the Balkans, it was believed that if you threw a handful of seeds or grain at a vampire, it would be forced to stop and count every single one, giving you a chance to escape. This is rooted in the idea that vampires have obsessive, almost machine-like minds. In some European folklore, scattering seeds on a suspected vampire's grave would keep it busy counting all night until the sun rose. It's a fascinating weakness that isn't physical, but mental. It suggests a creature trapped by its own rigid mind. While this hasn't been the main plot of a big Netflix show yet, it's a detail that's ripe for a modern psychological horror. Imagine a brilliant vampire detective whose obsessive nature makes them great at solving crimes, but also leaves them vulnerable. It's a strange, ancient quirk that adds a layer of intricate, psychological vulnerability, proving that the best cage isn't always made of iron bars, but sometimes of scattered seeds. Section 5. The Energy Vampire, Feeding on Life, Not Blood. Halfway through at number 5, we have a vampire that doesn't even need fangs, the Energy Vampire. This is a creature that feeds on life force, emotions, or psychic energy. You probably know the comedic version, Colin Robinson from What We Do in the Shadows, who literally bores people to death. But there's a terrifying side to this myth, exploring an invisible form of predation that can be just as deadly as a bite. The idea of a creature that feeds on life essence is ancient. In Scottish legend, the Balkan Sith were spirits who would lure men into dancing until they died of exhaustion, draining their life energy. This is scary because you can't see it happening. The victims don't have bite marks, They just waste away, becoming depressed and exhausted. While not strictly a vampire show, Netflix is the irregulars brushed up against these themes, dealing with psychic powers and the toll they take on people. The concept is a perfect metaphor for toxic relationships, emotional abuse, and burnout. The monster could be your coworker, your roommate, or your partner. The horror comes from the slow realization that someone in your life isn't just difficult, they're reactively feeding on your well-being. Section 4. The Scientific Cure. Vampirism is a reversible condition, and number 4 is something you rarely see in classic vampire stories: hope. This is the myth of the scientific cure, the idea that if vampirism is a disease, maybe it can be reversed. For centuries, the only cure was a stake or beheading. But grounding vampirism in science opens the door to the desperate search for a cure. While it's not a Netflix original, the Showtime series Let the Right One In is the perfect example of this. The show transforms the story into a father's desperate cross-country journey to save his daughter, Eleanor, who was turned into a vampire and is now permanently stuck at age 12. His entire life is about protecting her and finding the original vampire who bit her, believing that this sire holds the biological key to reversing her condition. This shifts the story from monstrous horror to tragic illness. The vampire isn't just a predator, but a patient, and their caretaker is a loving family member willing to do anything to save them. It's a powerful narrative that explores parental love, sacrifice, and the moral gray areas of searching for a cure. Section 3. The Political Animal. Vampires in Public Office. Nearing the top of our list at number 3 is a truly modern and terrifying myth: the vampire as a political animal. We've seen vampire kings and shadowy leaders, but what happens when they step into the light and run for office? This is a myth that's just begging for a prestige TV adaptation, best shown in the novel A People's History of the Vampire Uprising. This concept transforms the vampire from a physical predator into a social and political one. The novel depicts a world where a vampire pandemic has created a new class of beings called gloamings. Instead of an all-out war, something more complicated happens. The newly turned are strong, smart, and charismatic, and they quickly rise in business, sports, and entertainment. Society becomes divided, with some humans even wanting to be turned. The story climaxes when a wealthy, popular vampire runs for office, threatening to change the world order forever. This is a brilliant satire of our own political landscape, playing on anxieties about charismatic leaders with hidden agendas. It's a political drama that asks what happens when the predators stop hiding and start running on a platform of change. It's a chillingly relevant twist that suggests the most dangerous monsters might be the ones we willingly vote for. Section 2. The Divided Self, Human Vampire Hybrids. Our runner-up at number 2 is a myth about the inner conflict of being caught between two worlds: the Dhampir, or the human vampire hybrid. Born to one human and one vampire parent, this figure lives on the edge of both societies. In Balkan folklore, Dhampirs were often the ultimate vampire hunters, with all of their strengths and none of their weaknesses. But modern storytellers use this myth to explore complex themes of identity, belonging, and the war within oneself. Netflix's animated hit Castlevania gives us one of the best examples: Alucard. As the son of Dracula and a human woman, his entire existence is a battle between his love for his mother's humanity and his loyalty to his father's vampiric nature. This internal conflict makes him one of the most compelling characters in the series. The Blade franchise also famously popularized the Daywalker, a hybrid who uses their powers to protect humanity. The Dhampir is more than just a monster hunter. They are a walking identity crisis, a perfect protagonist for stories that explore the gray areas between good and evil, human and monster. It's a myth that proves the most fascinating battles are the ones fought within ourselves. Section 1. The Vampire God King. reshaping the world order, and now, the #1 vampire myth that is defining the next generation of epic vampire stories. We've seen viruses, politicians, and tragic heroes. But the most ambitious myth of all is the vampire as a god-king of being so powerful, it doesn't just live in the world, it remakes it. This is the vampire as a world-altering force of nature. This idea pulls from ancient mythologies, where blood-drinking entities were often gods or primordial demons. In the upcoming adaptation of Impact Winter, there are hints that the vampires possess immense, almost godlike powers that are truly terrifying. Meanwhile, MC's fantastic adaptation of Anne Rice's Interview with the Vampire, which has found a massive streaming audience on platforms like Netflix, perfectly captures this with Lestat. He's not just a vampire. He's a creator, a rock star, and a god in his own mind, with a 3rd season titled The Vampire Lestat, expected in 2026. This myth elevates the vampire from a simple monster to a world-altering entity. The conflict is no longer about survival. It's about theology, power, and the creation of new realities. This is the ultimate evolution of the vampire myth, a creature no longer content to hide in the shadows, but one that seeks to remake the world in its own dark image. Conclusion. So there you have it. From lab-grown viruses to political candidates, and from psychic parasites to literal gods, the vampire is being reborn for a new generation. Creators on Netflix and beyond are proving that these ancient creatures are far from dead. By twisting old lore, they're crafting vampires that are more complex, more relevant, and frankly, more terrifying than ever. They reflect our modern anxieties about disease, corruption, and our place in a chaotic world. The fangs and capes may be fading, but the horror, the tragedy, and the dark allure of the vampire are here to stay. CTA. Which of these vampire myths are you most excited to see more of? Are you hyped for the sci-fi horror of Impact Winter? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this trip into the crypt, make sure to like, subscribe, and ring that bell so you don't miss our next video, where we're breaking down the secret history of werewolves. See you next time.